New places, new perspectives, same questions, better answers. I'm Rowan Vell, and this is where learning becomes identity. Some experiences change more than what we know. They change how we see the world, how we understand each other, how we understand ourselves. Language learning is one of them. Higher education can be another, because behind every curriculum, policy, and institution is often a deeper question: who are we becoming? Let's explore. I think it's important that we begin today by understanding how context shapes development. When most people think about language learning, they think about communication. They think about things like ordering food abroad, passing a class, or maybe even preparing for travel. But in higher education, language learning often changes much more than just speech. Students who seriously engage language learning frequently begin to experience shifts in identity, confidence, worldview, relationships, and even the way they understand themselves within a global space. The question isn't just, what languages did the student learn? The question shifts to, what did the student become able to see, understand, and imagine because of that learning? From our readings in the first chapter of the text this week, we see how student development theory explains how students, quoted from the book, grow and develop holistically with increased complexity while enrolled in a post secondary educational environment. That's an elevated way of saying that development is both contextual and environmental. It's not isolated. So when students are in college, they're naturally going to develop. They develop because environments matter. Colleges present student an environment where complexity increases, and the institutions where they enroll shape developmental possibilities. Therefore, learning occurs inside and outside of a class space. That's why study abroad, intercultural discomfort, classroom participation, conversational tables and seminars, or even discussion boards in an online class space matter so much. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's bring this back to why language learning produces developmental shifts. Let's think about how Sanford's now iconic idea of challenge and support can apply to language learning. Sanford's idea is that development occurs when students encounter enough challenge with enough support. If we think about language learning, it often forces students into developmental situations they cannot fully control. A student who is highly competent in one environment may suddenly feel uncertain, dependent, or cognitively overwhelmed in another. They may struggle to express humor, emotion, and even their intelligence and identity in ways that feel effortless in a language that they're comfortable with. But that comfort can be deeply developmental if approached with support. Students often begin reconsidering assumptions that they previously viewed as universal. Static ideas that they once may have had about universal human traits become challenged, and development around communication, culture, identity, race, confidence, and even belonging can be reimagined in new, often unexpected ways. That's why we must understand that institutions largely shape what is possible. Chapter 3 of our reading emphasizes how theories cannot be separated from institutional environments. What this means is that language learning challenges students, yes, but it also means that institutions determine who gets access to those developmental opportunities to study languages. This makes us think about a litany of questions: which students can fit language courses into their degree plans, which majors discourage sustained language study, which institutions structurally support global engagement, which students can afford language study abroad, and what happens when language sequencing breaks, and so many, many more. But this brings us all back to how we began the video. At the beginning and end of it all, theory is about real people. Chapter 17 of our text emphasizes that human transformation happens through stories, developmental journeys, and connecting theory to lived experiences. I was once told by an elder that we as humans learn life's lessons in one of two ways: either by listening to the folks who came before us, or by experiencing them ourselves. I think this ties so well into what we learned this week. Student development theory matters because it gives language to experiences that students are already having. A student studying another language may think they need to be proficient in grammar to properly communicate, or will need to know a dozen words to convey a point. Yes, but those technical skills take time and hours of practice. The discipline to go on that journey is developmental. In the process of learning a language, students are developing intercultural awareness, reconsidering identity, building confidence, and learning about ambiguity while negotiating belonging all at once. I'd like to think of this language learning as them imagining a future self that may have previously felt impossible. Yes, language learning changes communication, but sometimes it also changes the person who's communicating. Join me next week when we continue this series by looking at issues of access and who gets to learn languages. I'm Rowan Bell. Until next time, stay curious about who you're becoming.